I have a concept idea for Mando Season 4. Mando gets swimming lessons. Jon Favreau, call me. It's going to be great. Trust me. This is the review of Champions, and I am your host, Sleeping Beauty or Grandmaster. Take your pick. With me is a powerful panel made up of the finest champions Sokar has to offer. Mr. Taylor first. How are you, man?
I'm good, thanks.
Me too. Great. Today we're going to talk about episode 1 called The Apostate and episode 2 called The Mines of Mandalor, or season 3 of The Mandalorian. But before we do, I want to ask you all to help us out. Like and share this video and subscribe to our channel. And if you really can't get enough of us, you can join our ranks. Go to Sokar at sokar.freeforums.net, set up an account, get to know us, and yes, you can join us in our reviews or podcasts. We would love to have you. Consider this your final warning. After this point, the spoilers are incoming. So if you haven't seen the episodes yet, go do that first and then check out our review. The Mandalorian returned to Disney Plus, and so did we for a brand new review series for this season. Mando and Grogu are back together after their adventures in the Book of Boba Fett, aka The Mandalorian Season 2.5. Din Djarin has been outcast from the Children of the Watch and seeks redemption. To do so, he will need to bathe in the waters, or the living waters beneath the Mines of Mandalor. However, the mines got destroyed along with the rest of Mandalore during the Night of 1,000 Tears. Still, he sets out on a quest to become a Mandalorian once again. Well, Taylor, we're gonna talk episode 1 first a little bit, and then episode 2. And I'm gonna give you the word, but I want you to ask me one question. Did you think that opening scene of episode 1 was a flashback scene?
I did.
Yeah,
I really thought that was the Mandalorian as a child getting his doing the ceremony.
Yeah, and then things unraveled pretty quickly. What did you think of episode 1?
I enjoyed it. Everything that happened in it for the most part was good. That opening scene, of course, where the big creature comes out of the water. I liked it. I mean, it may have been just, and for me, it has to be pretty far out there for me to say this, but I think it might have been just a little bit over the top with that creature and all of them blasting away with their blasters and the thing's not even bleeding, and then they shot their cable thing. What was the thought process there, shooting your cable into this thing that probably weighs 500 tons?
Yeah. It's like putting a leash on a dinosaur and holding it and give the leash to a 4-year-old child or something. It doesn't really work.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it was a cool scene, very exciting, and it was very cool when Mando came in and killed the thing with his ship, and then we saw him and Baby Yoda come back. So again, exciting scene. Like I said, maybe a little much. Maybe I got spoiled by the Andor, because this is really such a different tone than that show was. And both are fine. Both are good. Yeah. But Star Wars is doing stuff that it's very different from each other. So it may be a little bit jarring at times. But overall, I like the episode. They went from that. He went to the planet. I don't know the names of all the planets and stuff, but he went to the planet where Carl Weathers is running the show. And what I noticed there is there's been some improvements on that planet. It seems to be getting better, and I'm wondering if they're trying to imply that the Empire's gone now, and the people are free to improve their lot in life and make things a little bit better as time goes on. And then they went into the getting his droid back, or trying to reassemble his droid that was blown to bits in the first season, his droid friend, which I thought was a kind of a strange side thing. I'm not sure where they're going with it. We'll talk more in the second episode. But that was kind of the whole point there. And there were some really cool scenes with the aliens. We saw aliens that we've seen before in I think it was Rise of Skywalker. We saw those aliens that repair the droids, those little tiny ones.
Could be. What I noticed was droids holding up the cloak of High Magistrate. What's his face? Carl Weathers.
As holding up the cloak.
Yeah.
But then it went straight into the next, the next action scene with the pirates,
Mm-hmm.
and then a dogfight scene with the pirates. And as I recall, that was about the end. I mean, there was the part with the where he got the information from the armorer, whatever her name is, about how he can cleanse himself if he goes back to Mandalore. So I kind of thought that was setting up, the arc for the whole season. But as we'll talk about in the next episode, not so much. But overall, I liked it.
I want to be like Din Djarin. We'll return to Navarro for a second. Very briefly, they mention Marshall Doom, the character formerly played by Gina Serrano. Of course, there was some controversy online, because there's always controversy online. And somebody got cancelled. Well, all the time people get cancelled nowadays, so that's nothing special anymore. But it resulted in her being fired from everything Disney, I believe. How do you think they handled that with it just a throwaway line?
I mean, they did what they had to do, I guess. They just said she got recruited by the Imperial or the Republic forces or whatever to be in the special forces or something.
Yeah.
I mean, they had to write the character out. Mm-hmm. And I believe that pretty much killed one of the shows they were planning on doing, which wasn't it like Rangers of the New Republic or something. I thought she was going to be a big part of that, which is sad, and it's kind of it's a shame that this stuff happens. But it did, and I'm glad they didn't dwell on it too much, because it would have gotten I'd get to the point where we know she's gone because you fired her. So I'm kind of glad they kept it short.
I just wonder if they hadn't even mentioned it, people would still be hung up about it, because it was 2 years ago, I think, that the Mandalorian season 2 came out, and that controversy, I think, was in the early days of COVID. So yeah, there was not. I don't think it was very much big of a thing. Actually, when they mentioned it, I remembered.
Yeah.
Well,
I guess they felt they had to say something about, since the character's not there anymore. But I'm glad they kept it as short as they did.
Yeah. That opening scene, I thought it was a little bit too long. I really enjoyed the episode as well, but they dragged that opening scene a little bit out too much. And when it comes to, and we'll talk about episode 2 in a few minutes, when it comes to the first 2 episodes of The Mandalorian, I have that feeling constantly. But they drag things because, there's not much going on elsewhere. So they fill it up with some things. Especially episode 2, in my eyes, suffered from that. Do you think those pirates will come back in further in the season? I have a feeling they will. Yeah,
I have a feeling they will, and I hope they do. I thought there was a lot of potential for that that group.
Yeah, what I noticed was that one pilot, Vane, that was also the survivor on the planet. That was an actor with makeup on, or a mask and makeup, or something like that. But then the big pilot, Goran Sharp, he was called. That was pure CGI.
Right.
Yeah, and I actually thought Vane looked way better than that CGI thing, in my view. Agree?
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that they're not limiting themselves to just one or the other. I'm glad they're using the practical makeup when it's practical, when it makes sense. And I guess for that particular character, they just thought it wouldn't look right with practical, so they went with CGI. But I agree, the practical makeup effects looked great. They looked absolutely fine.
Yeah. Well, episode 2, the Mines of Mandalor. It basically starts with a scene on Tatooine, yes, once again we return to Tatooine because Din Djarin is looking for a droid part, a memory circuit. Nowhere to be found in the whole Star Wars universe, apparently. Which amazes me because you can still find parts for old machinery here on Earth still. If you need your Ford from the 1970s fixed, they can still do that. But anyway, and yeah, then he gets another droid. So yeah, indeed, what's up with that whole subplot on Navarro where they spent like 5 to 10 minutes talking about IG-11, the return of IG-11. It doesn't have the same ring as Return of the Jedi, by the way. And then, well, I will just buy another droid. And yeah, he couldn't have done that on Navarro. I didn't get the point.
Yeah, no, I agree. In fact, I was going to bring it up if you didn't bring it up. If that's all they're going to do with that whole IG-11 thing, that was just a waste of time. I don't know why. What were they thinking there? Mm-hmm. I agree with you about the parts, especially since in the Star Wars universe, technology never advances any. They're always the same level of technology. There's always the same X-Wing fighters and the same TIE fighters, no matter what era you're in. So it's always the same droids. So you think they could find parts, but then Carl Weathers offered him a brand new droid, and he said, no, I've got to get this one. So he goes all the way back to Tatooine, and that the character there, the woman that fixes the ships and sells stuff, yeah, her. I'm not thrilled with her character. I'm done with her.
I thought in season 1 she was great, and then it was fun to see her in season 2, and that small walk-by cameo she had in the Book of Boba Fett was like like the Leonardo DiCaprio meme where he points at the screen. Now, it gets a little bit repetitive, and if you repeat a trick too many times, it's just that, okay, we need to go to Navarro to show Carl Weathers, we need to go to Tatooine to show Peli, and probably Boba Fett will walk by as well at a certain moment, and then we've done all the things we need to do because that's the way it is. This is the way.
This is the way.
But I think the show actually suffers from this.
Yeah.
And
well, at least for me, at least with her, because like I said, I'm just tired of the character. It's a shtick. She's not that funny, and I'm kind of tired of her. Mando being portrayed as being stupid enough to get cheated by her all the time.
Yeah.
He knew that droid was a piece of garbage. He knew he could have gone back to Carl Weathers and gotten a better droid. Why didn't he? Why is he so dumb?
Yeah, exactly. And then a droid with who's scared. I mean, Mr. Data would be jealous because this droid has emotions.
Exactly.
Yeah. So okay, but I have let's talk about episode 2. Not much is going on actually. He picks up the droid, he goes to Mandalore, he gets captured, and then he gets rescued by Bo-Katan. All of which could be shown within like 5 to 10 minutes. They drag it out until 30.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some creatures running around for a dead planet, a destroyed planet where there's no trees there. I mean, there's nothing there anymore. Still, there's a lot of creatures walking around and being alive and finding food. I got the feeling the most of that episode was filler, just to stretch the episode, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Like I said, I enjoyed the second episode as well, but at this point, if they're doing 8 episodes again, we're 25% into the season, and I don't know what the story is yet.
No.
They really haven't. I thought the whole story was going to be him going back to the mines of Mandalor, and it was going to be some big journey to get there. But nope, that's already done.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think the building of the arc for this season is kind of off to a slow start.
Yeah, not only that, but I have a feeling it's going to be about the restoration of Mandalore somehow. That they will try to rebuild this planet, and that's why they show Navarro all pimped up and say, "Yeah, we have builders, and they're working very fast, and they're doing a lot of good things." So they will probably also be hired by Mandalore. I mean, and maybe even the reunification of all the Mandalorians. Maybe that's the goal of the show. I don't know, but that's the sense I get.
Yeah, and if that's where they're going, that's fine. That sounds like a good story. What I'm expecting then, maybe something of a conflict. I don't know if it'll go to the level of like a civil war, but there's going to be a conflict between the different Mandalorians, the ones that refuse to take their helmets off and the ones that have no problem with taking their helmets off. And as far as I know, that's the only difference between the two of them. But I guess it's a big deal to them, and that's fine. But there may be some conflict there. But yeah, I like how apparently everything they thought about Mandalore was wrong, and that it's not a dead planet. It's tons of destruction there, but there is still life there that you can still breathe. There's no radiation poisoning. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think it's very likely that you're right, and that a big piece of this season will be moving towards bringing back Mandalore and reuniting the Mandalorians, and I think that's a good story.
It has a lot of potential. I really hope they go there, and of course, there's this small arc, but not insignificant, of Bo-Katan seeing the history and the story she got told more as myths and legends, and then finding out that there is truth to it. Right. And I think the moment where she talks about her father dying in the defense of Mandalore, and then Din Djarin stands still, looks at her and says, "This is the way." I think that does more with her than she wants to admit at that point.
Yeah. Well, they established last season that she wants to be the undisputed ruler of Mandalore or of Mandalorians again, which is why she wanted that black saber so bad. So there's still a quandary there about the rules for getting the saber and for being in charge. So I'm assuming they'll address that. But yeah, and I'm sure that creature that was seen under the water, that huge creature, is going to have some significance. I'm not sure of all. I know they talked a bit about it as they were walking towards the water and stuff, but she obviously didn't know that the thing was still there, or maybe she never knew it actually really existed.
Yeah, I think she thought it was a myth. And then it turns out the legends are true.
Right, and who knows what else? Because in their earlier discussions with Andor, with the Mandalorian Jin, she had completely poo-pooed all these legends and these myths and all that stuff, which is the stuff that his group, of course, kind of based their whole culture on, I guess. But now that she's seen at least a piece of it's true, she's got to be wondering, how much else of it is true, and how wrong have I been?
Yeah. I wonder if they will find a way to unite these groups in a way that you get the best of both worlds, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, that would be good. I think that would be a really good story, finding some common ground between them and get them to live together. And maybe, I don't know who this would be, whether it's remnants of the Empire or what, maybe they would come together against a common enemy to restore Mandalore.
Yeah, and maybe Din Djarin will be the glue that holds everything together.
Yeah, probably.
And that's why he's called the Mandalorian. So,
I like I did like the creature designs and the action scenes throughout this episode. Both, when Mando got attacked by the cave creatures, that was a good scene, and then that thing that trapped him, that was a really cool design. That creature with the mechanical body inside another mechanical body, and then in the head. So that was a very cool design. And then the same thing when Bo-Katan got there and she got attacked. That was another cool action scene. I did think the part where he goes in the water and then sinks was a little bit strange. I don't know if the monster pulled him down or if he fell in a hole, but why he couldn't swim out, like you mentioned in the opening, why he couldn't swim out himself, I'm not sure what happened there.
Yeah, it looked a little bit silly. I mean, maybe he has his armor is too heavy because of all the Beskar steel, and maybe that's why he sunk. But he would still be conscious, and I don't get it. But yeah. Before I want to ask you a very serious question, I noticed something when they were walking up to when Bo-Katan and Grogu were going to rescue Din Djarin from his cage. They stood still for a second because Grogu is scared, and whenever the concept of fear arrives in Star Wars, my hair stand up because fear leads to anger, leads to hate, leads to the dark side.
Right.
That got me wondering. I mean, I think you didn't join us for our review series in season 2, but I already said back then that I suspect that Grogu may not be a Sith, but maybe can be seen as a potential Sith, because the way he acts is not the way of the Jedi, if you know what I mean. And we know he survived Order 66 somehow, because he has been training in the academy when Anakin killed all those kids, and he was around back then because he's 50 years old. He's still baby, or 55 or whatever now his age is. So did he survive Order 66 because he was seen as a potential Sith by the Emperor? That would make sense.
Yeah, that could very well be. I mean, right now it's speculation, but yeah, it could very well be, and it could explain why they were after him in the first place in the first season, why there was this big bounty on him, and Giancarlo Esposito and all the other Imperials were trying to get him. Maybe they were on orders of the Emperor to get this guy because he sees him as a potential Sith.
Yeah.
And of course, every Jedi has to struggle with the balance between the light side and the dark side. But to get them like when they're this young and this impressionable is probably, if you want to make a Sith, that's when you start probably.
Yeah, exactly. So this idea is still in my head, and I still see potential for that. Because he was also eager to leave the Jedi when he was training with Luke and Ahsoka. So yeah.
Right.
So yeah. Okay.
And in this episode, the second episode now, we are seeing some development of Baby Yoda. He grows, he ages extremely slowly, as we all know, but he is getting a little bit more mature. He's understanding things a lot better. He's making words or sounds.
Yeah, exactly.
Just the cooing. He learned how to get back to Bo-Katan's planet because Mando showed him the charts and everything. So he's obviously is maturing and becoming more self-reliant and more capable. And of course, when the monster got in his way, he just blew him away. So I do like that we are seeing some development in the Baby Yoda as well.
Yeah, exactly. Little children grow up, so that makes sense. And I believe Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni said that it's not like it's been 1 or 2 years or so. I think he has spent a significant time with Luke before he decided to go back to the Mandalorian. So.
Yeah, I saw some of that online, and there was a little bit of discrepancy there. I'm not sure if the writers or the showrunners ever laid out exactly how much time, but they did definitely say it was significant, as in years as opposed to months.
Now that you mention the writers, I normally don't like to do this, but then again, I do like to do it. So who am I kidding? We have been raving. What's it like 7 weeks in a row or something like that about Andor when it was airing. how well written it was, how good the dialogue was, that it was so atypical of Star Wars, but still very much Star Wars, and very, very, very good. I like The Mandalorian. Don't get me wrong. I love the show. It has a great vibe. I enjoy watching it. The stuff in there, sometimes it's pure Star Wars. Everything where I fell in love with Star Wars when I was a kid. But I think it's not that well written, and I don't think the dialogue feels as good as it was in Andor. And I don't mean to say it's a worse show or a bad show in any way, don't get me wrong, but I do feel that the show suffers from bad writing. How do you see this?
Well, like what's an example of the bad writing?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, like I say, they put in a lot of action scenes with a lot of creatures on this planet, so they can drag the episode out for a long time. All right. Is that because they don't know what to do with the show because they need some more time? The story they actually want to tell is way shorter than season would have been.
Mhm.
And yeah, the Bo-Katan, when we saw her in season 2, she was friendly with Mando, and she helped him on the cruiser to save Grogu from Moff Gideon. And okay, her goal was to get the darksaber. That didn't work out. Then we see her all depressed but still friendly in episode 1. And then when she sees his ship arrive, she mentions something like, "Let's get rid of him once and for all." Like she even wants to put a bullet in his head or something like that. I mean, to me, all that it doesn't add up, if you know what I mean. And you get the feeling they just put all those characters in because they look cool, and yeah, seeing them interact is cool. But is it really? Yeah, yeah. To me, it feels like it's a lot of filler. You get that side quest for IG-11, and then just buy another droid, which makes no sense. And then, yeah, they put in all those creatures which are easily defeated, and then Mando gets snatched by a cage or in a creature, and then Bo-Katan comes and she destroys it within a minute. It just doesn't add up for me.
Yeah, I definitely get what you're saying. They're very different types of shows. Like the focus of Andor is very much like a drama or a political thriller, you know, and that seems to be the I don't know who's running that show, but that seems to be the focus for that show.
Gilroy,
The story.
Yeah, the Gilroy brothers, I think, are running that show. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and that seems to be their focus is the story and the character development. Whereas this show is a much different type of show. I'm thinking, the focus of this show is much more on the action scenes and the adventure stuff and the creatures and things. And the story, is sort of a means to get to the next action scene. I forgot the word, MacGuffin. The story is all just to get him to the next cool action scene and the next cool space battle, which is fine because I love action scenes. I love cool space battles. I love these creature designs and everything. So it's all working for me. But again, like I said, it's a very different tone and a very different focus of the story. Whereas this is much more, Mando is much more pulpier. Again, much more Indiana Jones-ish.
Yeah.
And the Andor again is much more dramatic, much more of a like I said, a political thriller, espionage drama, Cold War story. That's more psychological, and better, worse. I love both of them, but I'm sure some people, just as a matter of taste, prefer one over the other. I've heard a lot of people said they didn't like Andor, and that just kind of shocked me. But I've heard people refer to it as, Star Wars for people who don't like Star Wars, and I'm like, come on.
No,
Star Wars it doesn't have to be just one thing,
no. Don't get me wrong. I love the Mandalorian as a show, but it suffers from the same thing that we were critiquing the Book of Boba Fett about, especially the season finale. It feels a lot like a kid who just got his action figures out of the toy box, but not all, and just makes up story in his head so they can fight, basically, or get in situations where they can fight. I mean, the Mandalorian reminds me a lot of the fantasy stories I created when I was playing as a kid with my action figures, also Star Wars, by the way. So, and whereas Andor felt a lot more taken care of. It felt like it was more professional writers have been working on it, and maybe they had to, because Andor is, of course, a side character in a filler movie, basically. It's a very good movie. Don't get me wrong. I think, personally, maybe even the best Star Wars movie. But it's a side character from a movie that is not part of the 9-episode movies we saw. The Skywalker saga. And then it's not even a main character, but a side character. Which get killed, by the way. So they kind of had to take care of a good story, good character development, interesting things happening. So they kind of had to. Whereas in The Mandalorian, they just can use characters from, Dave Filoni's child, the Clone Wars or Rebels or whatever, and then they can just throw them in, and then everybody will be, hey, look, live action, blah, 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 and oh, they fight, oh, that's cool, and they both survive, because otherwise we cannot do it again. Yeah. So, and yeah, I totally agree with you that I like both, but yeah, to me, I wish I had a little bit more of Andor in The Mandalorian, and a little bit more of The Mandalorian in Andor would balance it out, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really hard to find that balance, especially when you've got different writers and different directors and different showrunners working on the two different shows.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think it would have been really bad if Andor was just like The Mandalorian, where Andor would travel from one planet to another and pew 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 all the the different aliens and stuff, that would have just been the same thing without the mask on, that we've always seen. So I'm glad they're trying different things with the different shows.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, let's do a rating. Yeah, we do both episodes, episode 1, episode 2. So I want to hear 2 numbers from you, Taylor.
Actually, for both of them, I'm going to do the same. I'm going to give them both an 8 out of 10.
Okay. I'm going to give both a 7 out of 10. Because, like I say, I was really fond of Andor, and I'm a little bit disappointed that it's back to the same thing, and and if it's then not even you feel like there's a lot of going on that it doesn't really do much, or is just there to fill up the episode to get to half an hour, then it hurts. But it's still cool to watch, and I love where they seem to be going, if they are going there.
Yeah, like you said, Andor, our Mandalorian seems to be very much focused on the action, which is fine. It's almost like martial arts movies are focused on fight choreography. They're not focused on story. The story is just to get the people from one place to another and have them bump into each other. And it's sort of almost like that. But I'd like to see him change it up a little bit. Because I don't think there's ever been an episode of The Mandalorian where there wasn't some serious action. I'd like to see maybe one 30-minute episode that's Mandor and Bo-Katan, talking, discussing, the way ahead or something like that, and just bring it down a little bit for one episode, and then go back to the fighting pirates.
Yeah, it's the same like with the Book of Boba Fett in the trailer. You got like a Godfather-like scene,
Right.
where all the criminals are sitting at a table and then they discuss things, and that was actually a little bit disappointing how that turned out in the end. Well, we need more of that in Star Wars, I think. You cannot make a show that constantly relies on characters showing up and fighting, or getting to an action scene for the sake of an action scene, and because you don't know what to do in between, you just make up other creatures that attack, if you know what I mean. Exactly. That was episode 2 to me.
Yeah.
A lot of creatures attacking our heroes, and then basically the only really interesting thing that happened was when he sank into the living waters, and then they see the mythosaurs, basically.
Right. No, I agree. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that will conclude this week's review of Champions for the Apostate episode 1 and the Mines of Mandalor episode 2 of season 3 of The Mandalorian. We hope you have enjoyed our discussion today. If you did, you can help us out. Like and share this review, and subscribe to our channel. And if you really want more of us, join our forum at Shakar, shakar.freeforums.net. We'd love it if you join us. We will be back with our review for episode 3 next week. And soon we will be reviewing Shazam! Fury of the Gods and Secret Invasion. So for now, I thank you all, also on behalf of our champions. And wish you to be safe and be well. Bye. And then I will just count down and get it done. Okay. Gonna start in 3,